Good morning and welcome to this edition of Living Like You Mean It. This morning I'm at the corner of Sycamore Street and Bolingbrook Street in the Old Town portion of the historic city of Petersburg, Virginia. Behind me here you see the famous courthouse tower in the back, and I thought I'd come here this morning to talk about our next spiritual stone, and that is fellowship. In this community, 20 years ago tomorrow, August the 6th, 2013, marks 20 years since this portion of this community was struck by a devastating tornado that virtually wiped out a good portion of this community down in this area known as Old Town. There are lots of antique shops and things here now. This is a town I grew up in. I grew up in an area outside of town, but it's amazing how this town has weathered that tornado from 20 years ago. And as I walk down Sycamore Street to the corner of Old Street, which is the main street of the Old Town section, I can tell you that many thought that Petersburg's days as far as having any kind of opportunity to deal with anything historic and to capture the great historic nature of this city from its, as you see in the sign in front of me, the Civil War played a very prominent part in this town. And just over here to the right is the farmers market, a mainstay that's been here forever. It was originally a farmers market naturally, and then it became a nightclub, and has since become a farmers market again at times. And then here's Old Street. As we look down Old Street at the many shops, it's still early in the morning. Petersburg is just south of the city, the capital of Richmond. And 20 years ago tomorrow, this area was hit that afternoon by an unexpected storm that wiped out a lot of the tops of these buildings, these old historic buildings, some of them over 200 years old. There's one at the end of the street, looking down the street, Old Street, that dates back to 1675, which was the trading post. But I want to talk about the fellowship because as you look at these historic buildings, that day many people had to come together in community to help one another, to restore the livelihoods of these people that lost everything. And they made an effort to restore this historic city and keep the lifeblood of it moving. And here it is 20 years later, and as I pan around again to the farmers market, I want to tell you what the fellowship and the contributions of those people did to help this town continue on. As you look straight ahead at the gray house in front of you with the brown doors, and then this structure known as the farmers market here. If you watch the movie Lincoln, it was just done last year with Steven Spielberg directing and Daniel Day-Lewis starring as President Lincoln, this is where a good portion of that movie was filmed. In fact, the reason I point out the house there is because there's a very prominent scene in the movie where Daniel Day-Lewis as President Lincoln is standing outside that little fence in front of that house, trying to convince one of his congressional folk to vote for his bill, pleading with him. And I don't remember exactly which congressman or senator was supposedly living in that house, but of course this was supposedly depicted as Washington. But Mr. Spielberg said that this town, when he looked at it, he knew that Lincoln had been here, of course, and the Civil War connection, but he could not believe how many of the structures were so that he didn't have to do anything to them to hide anything. They came in and put down dirt on the street and went from there. But again, the fellowship that people brought as a team together to take this town back to what it is today is something special, because without those contributions to get this town rolling again, without that fellowship, who knows, that Spielberg movie may never have been made here. We're on a journey, and fellowship is part of that journey. Fellowship is about us coming together in a group, whether it be to help someone in need of emergency care, to help people as they restore a town, to help someone that is in dire straits and in need of assistance, to be our brother's keeper. Through the fellowship that we have together as Jesus followers, we have a uniqueness about us, but there's also a commonality, the human aspect of us all, that through God and through Jesus we're connected. We should come together in fellowship as much as we can to do for one another, to help one another, as a part of living like you mean it. So I hope that this little tour of Petersburg and these words of fellowship may inspire you and help you to move along in your day. Next week we're going to come back and we're going to talk about ministry. What does ministry mean to you? And I'm hoping to seek out a special friend to talk about ministry. And for most people, when you think of ministry, you think of ministry being a minister, being a pastor, a priest, a reverend. But there's a lot more to ministry than that. So have a great day. Enjoy your week. I'm Ray Grider. This is Living Like You Mean It from the historic town, my hometown of Petersburg, Virginia. Thanks for watching.